Today's topic is the ego identity in seminarians. Formation can become static if it does not keep up with the times. The aim of formation is to strengthen the ego of a seminarian so that it is sustainable and relevant to the world in which the seminarian lives. It is necessary to understand the effect of past experiences on the ego of seminarians. Some of the issues that need to be looked at by officials and seminaries in the psychological reports of seminarians are those that speak of issues of celibacy, commitment, permanence, and other predictors of the lifestyle and vocation of a priest. There is a need for developing a more consistent, comprehensive, and systematic process of culturally competent psychological evaluations of candidates to the priesthood, as well as spiritual evaluations. In assessing seminarians, there are three salient concerns: a need for a more clear communication and collaboration, a need for standardization, and a need for a more systematic, culturally competent, and sensitive assessment in practice. It is essential that prior to starting an evaluation of a seminarian at any age, the psychologist or the spiritual director should work closely with the referral source to clarify the referral question and decisional needs. This is important as there may be hidden agendas, unspoken expectations, and complex interpersonal relationships between the referral source and the seminarian. Also, it is important that all know the specific limitations of psychological tests and that in the interpretation of results, consideration of cultural factors is of paramount importance. In trying to understand the relational maturity of the seminarians, the age of the seminarian, the income status of the family of the seminarian, and the year of study is important. This is because these variables interact with the cultural variables, the acceptance of the past, and also the reminiscing of the past. These are important to know because they impact a seminarian's ego identity. They are indicators of how a person interacts with family, community, and the world. It appears that for the ego identity of a seminarian to be strong, there must be an acceptance of the past. Also, reminiscing the past appears to be just a stage in the development of a strong ego identity. If the person does not remain in the past and moves forward, there is a strengthening of the identity. Thus, the seminarian must move from reminiscing the past to accepting the past for ego identity to be established fully. This is important, as when a seminarian transitions from one stage to another, new contexts might tend to trigger unresolved experiences. Just because a seminarian has gone to the next stage of formation does not mean that he is developmentally advanced, even though chronologically he has aged. Formators must accept that ego identity occurs developmentally and not chronologically. Therefore, it is imperative that the formator identifies the developmental age of the seminarian and work at that developmental age with the seminarian. This is needed because every stage adds new stresses, new horizons, and new goals. Painful and unresolved issues would only tend to hamper continuous growth. Healthy attachment styles can be identified and worked with to help strengthen core experiences of the seminarian. In working at developmental ages, acculturation issues need to be considered, especially regarding age, study, culture, and family financial background. This would have to be done respecting cultural and diversity issues. A priori sensitizing to new context would help in surmounting some of the problems that might develop. The educational level, openness level, and ability of the seminarian seems to be factors that play a role in seminarian's ego identity. Therefore, for a seminarian to have a better ego identity, a minimum level of education is important. Education is a strong component for building the ego identity of a person and could be one of the ways of approaching dealing with the past as education improves reflective and critical thinking processes. Formators should elicit for every stage reminiscences and past experiences of the seminarian and help the seminarian identify and integrate aspects that have been positive and negative into his personality. Thus, accepting the past at an earlier stage could be an indicator of better ego identity in later stages of formation. Whatever be the issues that come up, it is important to inquire, probe, and confront accordingly. Ways to do this could be through psychometric tests or clinical interviews, along with broader-based inquiry. Through family visits and garnering of background issues, addictions, mental health illnesses, information could be gathered right at the beginning of formation, which could help in working with blocks that might get set up later in formation. It would also help to know the seminarian's awareness levels on different issues, like the evangelical counsel, relationships, intimacy, and financial matters. Through various insertion programs and exposure to different ministries and contexts, the motivation vis-a-vis the choice made for priesthood can be better understood. Also, social functionality, interests, energy levels, repetitive behavioral patterns would need to be addressed. Periods of transgression and periods of transitions are difficult, and stresses about why these are happening need to be checked and dealt with. Maturity or stagnation in religious life are important issues for reflection because the reasons for stagnation need to be dealt with. Seminaries in their formation programs should include various pedagogies. The seminarians are instructed in a disciplined analysis of the sacred texts, in the formation of their pastoral identities, dispositions, and values, in the understanding of the complex social, political, personal, and congregational conditions in which they are embedded, and in the skills of preacher, counselor, liturgist, and leader through which they exercise their pastoral, priestly responsibilities. Theological education should create a greater integration of the cognitive, practical, and normative so that it narrows the perceived gap between education and practice and between the goals of skills training and a formation. It thus includes explicit activity of seminarians and their interactions with others, noted through table fellowship and other healthy relationships. Mentors play an important role in clergy students' professional formation, where the focus is on helping the student learn and grow in maturity. As often, seminarians role model their mentors. The mentors engage in their own leadership formation issues and theologically reflect on the meaning of their ministries along with the seminarians, where they develop the capacities of the leaders of the future. This should be continuous through supervision and ongoing studies. Thus, there occurs a process of discernment that involves looking at worldviews, belief systems, internalize objects of authority from family of origin, and ways in which key relationships in childhood reveal the true nature of God, self, and identity. Focusing on the lived operative theology of the seminarian includes recognizing unconscious aspects contrasted with intellectual theology so that the seminarian's beliefs emerge more coherent and authentic, making him readily available for genuine pastoral ministry. The seminarians thus can recognize and change erroneous beliefs about God and self. This process helps in anchoring the seminarian in his chosen path. In considering ego maturity, a multi-phase, multi-year plan could be considered that includes fieldwork evaluation, written statements, periodic reviews, and in-seminary training on issues other than theology. Intervention should consider family functioning, parental practices, and parental monitoring. This integrated vision of formation would help in developing men for others and men in constant search of their own uniqueness.